when I was 8 years old, particularly, my grandfather, who went to World War II and luckily survived through 5 years, so he came back from German front with few things as a trophy, he said. So it turned to be that one of the trophies was like a camera. And I was like 7, 8 years old, like I said, and you know, cameras in 1960s, early 60s were first of all very expensive to buy. Secondary, like not every single family can afford it. And honestly, I had no idea what I have at that time. So my grandfather explained to me, what is this? And I was very fascinated with this equipment because it looks so weird. There's 3 different small windows, like a viewfinder. There's a little tiny collapsible lens, which to me looks like freaking submarine. So once I remember clearly, I tried to take this camera to a bathtub because I thought this is gonna work. So, you know, that was my introduction to camera, and then he explained to me how to take the pictures, and back then we had 2 gray dans, and that's how I started photographing.
I've worked as an independent contractor for a few companies doing things for marketing, and after many years of that, I've decided that the thing that brings me that feels right in my soul is not photographing for the sole purpose of selling something or marketing, and not photographing for the sole purpose of fabricating or putting something on social media. So I'm really passionate about telling the truth and documenting the truth that way. And I think analog is really special because I think it's more truthful to me, I guess, and it's more about slowing down and taking the time and not rushing. I mean, if I were gonna go do a photo shoot, I would take 1,000 photos on my digital camera, or I would shoot 3 rolls of film. And the 3 rolls of film will be a lot better quality because I was actually, I mean, to film every shot is money, and I'm frugal. So every single shot, I'm like, this has to be perfect. I cannot waste.
Welcome to Urbana Museum of Photography. My name is Lyosha Svinarski. I'm artist, photographer, and director and / owner of the Urbana Museum of Photography.
My name is Anna Longworth, and I'm an independent photographer, and I recently started working at Urbana Museum of Photography.
The museum itself, it's a living organism, I would put this way, because we are changing constantly. But of course it has base, and this base combined by putting, I would say, 4, okay, so to me actually it's like a diamond. I'm sorry, I've been spoiled child, but anyway, it's like a diamond with several facets. Every single facet would not exist without supporting 2 other facets. So roughly speaking, that's the Urbana Museum of Photography. The Urbana Museum of Photography itself is a title that's an umbrella. It's like a tin. So on the umbrella we have a darkroom, we have a studio, we have a photo class, and we have gallery. Those 4 facets, that's the structure of the Urbana Museum of Photography. They all work independently, but at the same time, like I mentioned, they support each other. That's the whole idea. For instance, the only one part we consider to be as a purely commercial, which is scanning and processing film and running the actual photo lab. That ideally will be maybe helpful for us to support gallery, to support photo class, and support the studio shootings and stuff like that. Of course, every single facet, like I said, can be individual and can be maintained itself by itself. You know, for instance, we can launch the photo sessions with the portraiture and charge people for that. We can do film processing, charge people for that again. We do window to display local and emerging talents of photography in our gallery space. And at the same time, we'll continue to prepare younger generation for the photography and explain that process and keep teaching.
I've always been interested in history ever since I was a little kid. My parents would always have old photos around. They would put a disposable camera in my brother and I's stockings every year. And I remember that camera was ravished by the time we left to go to my grandparents' house, just photographing everything. I love documenting. And I'm not sure why I love documenting. I don't know if I love it because I like to reflect or because I romanticize maybe one day when I'm gone, future generations will look back and see these photos and learn a little bit about this time. I think it's a combo of all of those things, but I love documenting. And I've gone through a lot of stages with photography. I guess as a teenager in high school, my little tiny high school at St. Joseph Ogden had a little darkroom, which is shocking for the size of our little tiny school. But it was the size of a little closet, and my art teacher, Miss Adamic at the time, taught, like, you could pick what you wanted to do. Do you want to do photography, painting? What's your focus for this semester or year or whatever it was? And I, of course, picked photography. And so I shot on a little, I don't even remember what camera it was, and she taught me the whole process of developing film and then making black and white prints in the darkroom in our little closet. And ever since then, I was just fascinated, but as a high school student, I didn't have the funds or knowledge of, like, how do I have a darkroom for myself? How do I do this? So because I was born in '93, so I'm in the era that started before digital cameras, but then quickly transitioned to everyone has digital, and that's pretty much it. So after learning on a film camera and disposables all of my life, I started shooting digital photography. And in high school, I actually did the school to work program. So I would go until 4th hour, and then I would go work for a photographer. And I learned a lot that way, and that was all digital. So I learned a lot of Photoshop, editing, things like that. And then I went to college for 1 semester and just hated it. Wasn't for me. So I came back, and in high school I was booking sessions, my little agenda. It's like, here's English homework, oh, photo shoot. I started booking sessions. So I wasn't charging, maybe like 20 bucks or something. And did photo sessions that way. And then once I left from my 1 semester of college, I started booking weddings and things like that. And nothing against those kinds of shoots. I do enjoy them from the aspect that, like weddings, for example, it is a pure display of humanity, and that's what I love. But unfortunately, a lot of times it becomes less about documenting and more about fabricating. So I always say, if I could be invisible, that is my ultimate dream. If I could just, put on my invisibility cloak and have a camera, that would be ideal. But that's not the case. So I guess that brings me to now. I've never stopped taking photos.
Now, teaching is very, very important element in our activities because it's strictly related, not only technical aspect like, okay, I'll teach you analog photography. It's not like we teach analog living, meaning that if students will start using the photo lab, then they will learn how to behave in lab, how organize things, clean after you're done, be responsible for your workplace, think about who will gonna come after you and replace you with working environment. And moreover, like Anna mentioned, analog slows people down. You really have to think about what you're doing. Moreover, it's all about to be selective. And once again, Anna mentioned very important things, that analog costs money. Every single frame, it's a 0.33 cents. It depends how much you're buying film from. But let's say it's like 12 to 14 bucks a roll of 36 exposures. That's kind of course you can find cheaper, but okay, let's do this. So that's how it comes. It's very, very important because in the early stages you teach kids to be responsible for what you do.
When you walk up the door, it is a door that is comprised mostly of glass, and if you peer in from the outside, you can first see some very old cameras. I don't know how old some of these are, but very old. I don't know, 1800s?
Oh yeah, well, 1910s, 1915s, some of them 1800s. Yeah, like this big boy behind us, for instance.
Yeah.
This is late 1800s.
And you see photos on the wall, and some of them are historic. You walk in and there's an old timer on a shelf, and it's very clean. I would say it's a minimal space. There's not a lot of junk in here. Everything is here for a reason. And then if you take left, you go into a room where there are some supplies for developing film, a dryer to hang the film, and then you take a right into another little area and there's this large sink basin, and that is where you develop the film. And there's tubes of water, there's a fan for when the chemicals are strong, it's all right there. And then right through that hallway you go into the where the dark room is.
Enlargement?
Yeah, the enlargement room. And there are 2 enlargers in there. There's a scanner, a printer, and once your film is developed and dried, you can do whatever you need in that room, whether you're making a print with the enlarger or scanning it or printing it. That's right there. And then if you come back out to the main room here, that room to the left is a studio space where there's some really lovely light that comes in at certain times of day, early afternoon or late morning. And there can be portrait sessions there. I believe people photograph still lifes. The possibilities are endless in there. It's a little studio space.
My personal work doesn't really reflect of documenting things, and I don't know what actually attracts me. I don't specialize my photography in sort of shelves, like a street photography, landscape photography or portraiture and stuff like that. I consider myself just as an artist, just as a photographer. If I call myself I'm a photographer, which I try to avoid, usually people call me, oh, Lyosha, he's a photographer, we know him. So myself, it's like I don't have a privilege of one subject to another, and I'm not asking myself when I can photograph horse, next second I can photograph like some nasty things, or I can photograph other things,